Hello everybody, my name is Dee and welcome to Books and Quirks. Today is Friday, so it's time for a Friday Reads. But since I don't have much of a Friday Reads, I'm actually also going to include my March wrap-up just to tell you about the books that I finished in the month of March for March Mystery Madness, as well as Middle Grade March, and a couple of others that I finished as well. So let me get started with March Mystery Madness. I wasn't able to complete all of the challenges, but I was able to complete most of them. So let me get started. The first challenge for March Mystery Madness was shelf. Basically, you could interpret these words any way you wanted, and I picked a book from my shelf, and that was Wicked Appetite by Janet Ivanovich. This is a paranormal mystery, and I've talked about it a bit on my channel, so it was just a lot of fun. This is just a fun, quick read, and that's basically all you need to know. There are bad guys, there's good guys, there's magic, there's just a whole bunch of stuff thrown in here, and I absolutely loved it. So this was my shelf pick. One of the challenges that I did not complete was the borrow challenge. I did borrow a book from the library. I borrowed Limelight, but I did not, unfortunately, I didn't get to finish that. I was going to read it this past week in the last week of March, but my mystery reading kind of fizzled out at the end of the month and I needed a change, so I didn't get to complete that challenge. The next challenge was new, so I picked the newest book that I had bought at that time, because I bought a couple others since. It's A Curious Beginning, which is a Veronica Speedwell murder mystery novel, and it is by Deanna Raybourn. This is a murder mystery that takes place in Victorian times. It is Veronica Speedwell is well ahead of her time in this book. She is a character who is outspoken, who is very much her own woman. She will not take orders from any man. She does not want the typical, get married and be a housewife and have children kind of girl, or kind of woman, I should say. And I really enjoyed this book. It was fast-paced. There was not a point in this book where I was bored. I absolutely loved it. If you're looking for a good mystery and you like, historical mysteries, I definitely recommend this. And this is part of a series, the Veronica Speedwell series. So I look forward to reading the other books in the series as well. I think there's 2 more out. I don't know if it's going to stay a trilogy or what, but cannot wait to continue on. This was an excellent, excellent book, and I love the covers. The next challenge was historical, and I did have a book picked out for this, but this is the other challenge that I did not complete. So let's just move on to the next one. The next challenge was foreign. So I basically took this challenge as somebody from another country, and I picked And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. My gosh, I am so glad I finally got to read the Agatha Christie book, because this was so good. And you can see how her novels have influenced other novels that came after it, because this book was written in the 1930s. And oh my God, she is just the queen of suspense and kind of the murder mystery genre. It's a classic whodunit. Basically, all of these people receive letters. 10 people receive letters inviting them to this exclusive island that a millionaire bought, and there's a mansion on the island, and they're all kind of lured there under false pretenses. Once they get there, the owner is not there. He says he sends a letter saying he's sort of running late. And they all begin to feel something is a little bit off. And then they realize that they're being hunted and there's no way off this island. It was just so gripping. It was a very short book, like 200 pages only, and I absolutely loved it. And I am now an Agatha Christie fan, and I cannot wait to read more of her books. I actually already lent this book out because I was just like, oh my God, such a good book. You have to read this. And the last challenge for March Mystery Madness was opposite. So I took this challenge as, reading a book that is opposite of what I normally would pick up. And for that, I chose my favorite thing is monsters. This is a murder mystery. It is excellent. I'll show you some of the pages, but it's just so good. So this is a graphic novel by Emile Ferris. I was trying to remember her name. And it takes place in 1960 Chicago. It's told from the point of view of a 10-year-old girl and what she witnesses and sees. And it also, but this is not a graphic novel for children. It touches on very heavy subjects. It even goes back in time, during the time of the Nazi occupation in Germany. Basically, when this graphic novel starts, the little girl, her name is Karen, and her upstairs neighbor Anka, who is a Holocaust survivor, is murdered. And Karen is trying to find out what happened, who murdered her, and basically just what went down to get her killed. Karen is also fascinated with B horror films, like The Wolf Man and The Blob and The Creature from the Black Lagoon and all things like that. And she even pictures herself as a monster. So this deals with a lot of themes of, what it means to be a monster. There are basically two types of monsters, in her point of view, in her world. Those that feel like they don't fit into society, those that feel like they're outsiders. And then there's also the real evil monsters that do evil things. As Karen learned more about Anka's life, a good chunk of the novel even goes back in time, 20 years, to the Nazi occupation, and you get to see the cruelties of the death camps. None of that is shied away from. You also get to see Anka's life as a young woman and the kinds of things that she needed to go through also. Also in the 1960s, it deals with the gender movement, the race protests, and the race marches, Martin Luther King's death. It just deals with so many harsh topics. It is a very thick graphic novel, but I think that it is an important piece of work, and I definitely recommend it, and I really enjoyed that book. The only other novel that I finished for March Mystery Madness, but it didn't fit into any of the challenges, was Elizabeth Peters' Crocodile on the Sandbank. This is an Amelia Peabody murder mystery. I really enjoyed it. This Amelia Peabody is, again, ahead of her time because this does take place during the Victorian era, and she is an Egyptologist, an archaeologist. I don't know exactly which one she is because she's part of both. But yes, they go to Egypt to excavate and search for mummies. There is a mummy that is running about, and that's a huge mystery. So this was a fun book, and I highly recommend this series if you're interested in, again, history, Egyptology plus mystery. So I really enjoyed this book as well. Okay, so let's move on to Middle Grade March. The first book, I only read 2 books for Middle Grade March, but it's still more than what I normally read, and I'm really happy with what I read. So the first book is Furthermore by Tahara Mafi. I read this as an ebook. This book is sort of a different take on Alice in Wonderland. It follows Alice, who is a young girl, and she lives in a world where, color is sort of currency and color is everywhere. Alice, on the other hand, was born without any color. I think she's very white um, from head to toe, no color, and I think she has always been looked at as an outsider. She feels very also unloved by her mother, and her father has been missing for quite some time. So Alice is approached by a young boy named Oliver who says that he knows where her father is and he needs her help in order to get him. And through certain events, they enter a world that she thought was only a fairy tale. And that world is Furthermore. It's sort of like, Alice jumping down the rabbit hole. It's, a similar kind of concept. But I do want to say that there are also very stark differences from Alice in Wonderland. So even if you're not a huge Alice in Wonderland fan, I still think this book is enjoyable because I'm not a huge Alice in Wonderland fan. I know a lot of you are out there. I just was not a huge fan of Alice in Wonderland, but I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was such a fun ride. They enter this world, they encounter all sorts of very unique people and creatures. And within Furthermore, it's like Furthermore is its own world. And within this world, there are, hundreds and hundreds of little, like, countries or mini worlds in it. And each one has its own rules. And I mean, it's just so out there. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just so unique and creative. And I really enjoyed it. And the next middle grade book that I finished, and it's the first one that I finished, was The Secret of the Clock, which is a Nancy Drew mystery by Carolyn Keene. And everybody knows these books. These books, I think, have been around since the 1930s, I think, was the first time they were published. And they still exist today. I read these books as a little girl, or I didn't read all of them. There was like 60 books or something. I read a few of them as a very little girl, and it was so much fun going back and rereading it as an adult. And I thought it was a lot of fun still. It kept my attention, but I flew through it in one sitting because the writing is huge. It's just, yeah, it's again like 200 pages. These books, like, you can just fly through, but it was fun nonetheless, and I really enjoyed it as she's solving her mystery. So that is it for March Mystery Madness and Middle Grade March. Now for what I'll be reading this weekend. I don't really have much of a TBR for this weekend, but I know at least 2 books that I will be starting. The first is A Solace of Water by Elizabeth Byler Yountz. I had to look at my phone to make sure I remembered that. As far as I know, I got this book from NetGalley, so it's being published in about a month. And from what I remember of the synopsis, it is about 2 women. One is a young African-American preacher's wife, and the other is a former Amish person. I'm not sure if she was married or what, but she was formerly part of an Amish community. And they form an unlikely friendship, and I think it just is a book about their friendship, about overcoming some hardships in each of their lives. I think it also gives you an account of some of the things that they've gone through. And it's just, I don't remember a whole lot more, but I remembered that when I read the synopsis, I knew that this was a book that I wanted to read. I hope it is as good as it sounds. It's only like 300 pages, so it's not very long at all. And yeah, I hope to read that this weekend and starting tonight, actually. The next book that I want to get through this weekend is Bad Ship, which is the second book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb. I read the first book a few months ago, and I just cannot wait to continue on. I really love Robin Hobb's writing, and I just want to, it's high time I go on to the second book. So I have this on ebook as well, and I will be reading that this weekend also. So that is all I have for you. That is my wrap up for the two readathons going on in March, as well as my Friday reads. I hope you all have good plans for this weekend. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you all very, very soon. Bye.